Hey guys, Nick here. It's end of July 2012, and I thought I'd take a minute to show you guys the firing system that I had built. Started it last summer, and it's kind of been taking me all year to build it. But you know, the whole idea behind this was when we first started shooting shows, it was like, you know, little things that you could easily run to and ignite. And then as the years progressed and you started to want to, you know, build in with some music, and you had more product to shoot, you had to like get 4 or 5 volunteers and kind of coordinate them and yell to them at certain times to tell them where to go and stuff. And so last year I decided, you know, it'd be fun to kind of maybe build my own firing system. Certainly this is not my brainchild. This is built off of plans that I found on Pyro Universe's firing systems forums, and based on basically 2 designs that I had found, and I kind of combined them together. So I'll show you what all is involved in this, and really this video is to show you that if I can do it, anybody can build one of these. If you can't afford to get your own firing system or a wireless firing system, this was a fun way to kind of get really in depth with your fireworks and be able to shoot multiple things off just by pushing a button. So let me show you what we got here. Okay, so this is basically when I go out to set up our fireworks. This is sort of everything that I'm needing to bring out with me into the field. This is everything that's involved in this firing system. So first off, we have the slats. On an electronic firing system, this would be called like the modules, the places where the fireworks are actually connected way out in the field. That's what these are. There's 6 of them, so we have the ability with this firing system to shoot from 6 different locations. There are 20 cues on each slat. Right, so those are the slats. Of course, always got to have the battery. Now today I'm actually using my drill battery, which is 14 volts, because I left my 12 volt battery at the last shoot that we were at. So hence I have the 14 volt battery here today that's actually registering about 16 volts when I tested it with my voltage meter. Next is the actual firing panel. Now this I built right into a suitcase that I got for free at a garage sale. So essentially how it works, just open it up. But this is essentially where all of the control is done. This is the hookups. These 6 wires are the hookups to go to the slats, which are there. Okay, and then I'll give you kind of a more in-depth demonstration of how this works, but we have our battery hookup there, which is where we hook up to our power source. Here we have the row selectors. So on each slat there's rows and there's columns. So to select which row you're going to fire, you'll just hit A, you know, B, whatever. You can set off an entire row if you want to. And then once you have your row selected, you'll just hit your trigger for firing here. So we got 1 through 5 here, and then triggers 6 through 10 here. Okay, this system has been built with the ability to test continuity. So in the middle is set to the off position. If we wanted to move it into test mode, we would click it down there, and then we'd be in test mode. And then we go into arm mode. We can still test continuity and things like that, but then all it takes is a turn of the key. And always keep the key right up here inside the envelope here. So we can always just turn the key, and then we'll get full power out to the cues. And again, we'll do a demonstration of that stuff later. All right. Along with this system, we have 6 slat wires. Now, these slat wires are all 50 feet in length. So we're going from these connectors here to the slat wire that goes out 50 feet from the firing panel. That will all connect up to the connectors on the slats themselves, so to keep everything connected. The cool thing about these slat wires is that they are wired up with female on one end and a male connector on the other end. So if you wanted to, you could just attach multiple slat cables together if you needed more distance. Now with this system, because it's a lot cheaper, and cheaper was what I was going for when I built it, because it's a lot cheaper to just buy screws rather than the, you know, the speaker terminals, you know, where you can just plug the wires right in. Because it was cheaper to do it this way, there's actually, this bag of mine carries all of our shooting wires. Now the shooting wires all have alligator clips on the end of them. And the alligator clips make it easy to connect right up to those machine screws, so that you're not having to like twist wires around them or like turn a nut to kind of keep it tight. These have been made it really easy. All right, one other thing real quick that I'll show you is a great way out in the field, you know, or actually not in the field, but when you got all your cakes, you have all your mortars that you want to set up. When you're connecting up the E-matches or the igniters or whatever, it's nice to be able to check continuity on those before you get out in the field and want to check continuity on the panel. And so one thing I used was this, and I found this again on Pyro Universe's forums. It's essentially a little continuity tester with a 9-volt battery inside. It's got a resistor that goes to an LED light, and then you'll run your test by touching the leads of the E-match or the consumer igniter to these two leads here. So I'll give you a quick example. Okay, so here we go. So put one lead on that one and then one lead on that one. I don't know if you can see this, but the green light goes on right there. Let's see if I can get it in close. See that? The green light goes on and off. And so that's just a way to make sure that, hey, even while I'm setting it up on the actual product that I'm using, I can check continuity so I know I'm good. Okay, so let's look at how we get this thing set up. So start out by opening up the firing system there, and we'll get these kind of laid out. They want to come back because they lay this way all the time, but alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab some of the slat cables and start hooking up the slat wires to go from here out to the slats. Okay, just like that. Got one connected. Okay, so as you can see now, we got all of the slat wires connected up to the panel, and they all go out. I'm just going to obviously do a modified distance here, but there's 50 feet in each cable, so we can get out 50 feet. And there again are 6 cables here. So the way I usually set it up is this will be your far left, your intermediate left, your center, your intermediate right, and your far right. And then we've got one more that I usually use. I set it up in back of my position so that I can set up one panel just for the finale. So next I'll kind of show you how we set up the slats. So we've obviously got 6 slats here, and on them are the different letter and number pairs, so that I know when I'm firing on the board which cue I'm firing off. So we'll start out with, and again, each slat has 20 cues on it. So we're going to start out with A through D, 1 through 5. That's my first slat. So what I do is go out to my first position here and set this up. And just to show you, I hope you can see this, these are just 9-pin connectors. I got these Molex connectors really cheap, so they have 3 extra slots that I don't use, but they match up perfectly with this 9 that are on here. So, and they simply, if you just look, there's a hook, and then there's a spot that receives the hook there, and all you got to do is just make sure they fit into place, and there you go. And you're locked in, ready to go. Get this set up over here. Lastly, we'll do the finale slat, which is I through L, 6 through 10. Now the numbers and letters on these are actually interchangeable. So let's say you had, for instance, you damaged one of the slats or whatever, and you needed to move one of them over because you couldn't use that one. You could easily just take off the tape. This is just tape with the numbers and letters. You could take that off, and interchange them. It doesn't really matter, just so long as you know that they're going into the right location on the firing panel. That's the most important thing. Okay, so just to show you, so this will be slat, this is the first slat. It's got cues A through D, 1 through 5. Alright, so what I do is I take the shooting wires that I've put together, and what I'll do is I'll just connect. I'm just going to say my first cue is going to be cue A1. Alright, you just set it up. That makes it easier than having to kind of use screw downs and stuff like that. So then what I do is, if I had firework to connect, I would connect it, but I live in safe and saneville, so we're just going to use a consumer igniter to some fuse. Alright, so then I would just take my consumer igniter, and since it's DC power, you don't have to worry about which side is which. You just connect them up and make sure that the wires don't touch, otherwise they will short the circuit out. So there we go. There's my first connection done. So then what I would do is connect this up with to the fuse of like a cake or a mortar or something like that. But since we're not going to do that, I just have some fuse that I'll connect it up to. Okay, so what I did was I randomly chose one cue on each of the slats, and just to show a little demonstration of what they can do, I'm taking some green visco fuse and I'm going to put it in each of the igniters, just so I can show you kind of how the cues fire. Alright, so now what we have is one visco in each of the cues, and now I'll take you over to the firing panel and we'll kind of look at continuity and then test it out. Okay, so now we're at the firing panel. We got the battery hooked up, and then, like I said, this is not the optimal battery situation, but this is what I got to work with right now. So, alright, so it's in the off position right now. So what I can do is move it into the test position, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not, but we have a green test LED, so it's green showing that we can test continuity. Alright, so now if we were ready to, we can move it into the arm position. We get another green light here, and then we can test continuity, and at that point we can also test to make sure that the buttons are working. So whenever I'm in the arm mode and I go ahead and click these on, I can show which ones I have cues on, and then also if I press the trigger button, it'll give me a red light up here showing me that not only is there continuity, but the button is working. There's no loose wiring with the buttons, so the triggers, so that's good. Alright, so what I'll do now is I will show you where I put the cues out on the slats, and then we'll check continuity on the firing panel. Okay, so here on the first slat we have the first cue set up on A1, and we just kind of randomly chose some different cues. On the second slat we have it set up on C1. On the third slat we have it set up on G2. On the fourth slat we have it set up on H9. On the fifth slat we have it set up on J5. And on the last, the finale slat, we have it set up on L10. So what we'll do now is we'll go back over to the panel and check continuity on those. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to arm the different rows, and then we'll check the triggers to make sure that we have continuity. So these LEDs light up whenever I have a row on. So those are always just going to light up if that is on. So in the dark you'll be able to tell which rows you have activated. So we're going to check A1. Right? So A is now on, and then we'll check continuity, and we do have one LED lit on cue number 1 and not any of the others, so that's awesome. And then next we were going to check, we have a cue on C1, so we'll go up here, turn on row C, and not seeing continuity there, so let's go check to see if we had. Okay, and actually I was looking, and the problem is it's not C1 that we had it on. C6 is the one that it's on. So if we go back here, And if we look, we've got row C activated, and the Q on 6 is good to go. So if we go to G, turn on G, and we have continuity on G2. Good. And then H, we should have, yep, continuity on number 9. Let's go to J and go to 5, and 5 is lit. And then L, turn L on, and then we should have something at L10. Very good. All right, so that is test mode. Okay, so we'll light off the first one, which is going to be on A1. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. The second one is going to be on C6. 3, 2, 1, go. The third one will be on F2. Oh no, sorry, that is on G2. So G2, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. The next one is on H9. H9, 3, 2, 1, go. The next one is on, looks like J5. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, and the last one is on L10. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so all of them fired. As long as you know which ones you're firing correctly, they all fired. So next what I'm gonna do is a check on how many you can light off at one time. So the thing with igniters is when you're using a battery supply, obviously it's only gonna send out so much power. So you gotta be careful with how many you have queued up to go all at once. So in order to test that, we're gonna start off with 3 igniters hooked up to some fuse. And we're gonna see if we can light all 3 off just by hitting 1 key. Okay, so now just to kind of show you, we've got, if I can focus in here, we've got 3 igniters, and what I did was I set them up on, let's see if I can get focus, there we go. We've got them set up on Q's A1 and B1 over here, and then we've got it set up on Q E1 over here. So they're all going to be on trigger number 1, just different rows. So what we'll do now is we'll go over and test continuity. Okay, so we'll turn on A, and it shows we have continuity on Q number 1. And then, let's see, turn that one off, turn B on, and it shows we have continuity. Okay, turn that one off, turn E on, and shows we have continuity. Now, if we had just turned all A, B, and E on, of course it's just going to show continuity. You know, B could be not properly set up and we wouldn't know it. So that's why it's really important to check each Q individually by row. So it shows we have all 3, so let's get set up to see if it'll fire all 3 in 1 trigger. Alright, we have continuity in all of them, switching to fully armed, firing in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, and just so you know, we've got 50 foot of slat cable we're going through, plus another 10 foot of shooting wire, plus another, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 feet of consumer igniter wire. So, you know, we're at about, you know, 65 or so feet out from the firing panel and still getting really quick ignition, which is great. So now let's step it up a notch. Why don't we try igniting 5 at once? I'm going to show you, we got all the igniters set up with fuses, and we'll come over and check continuity on each of them. Okay, so let's see, A1, A6, and then we should have it on E1 and E6. E1 is, and E6 is, and then we should have it on I1, and we do. All right, and here's my fabulous assistant, Sophie, my daughter. All right, so, okay, so let's go ahead and do the test. This is 5 igniter cues going off all at once. So we have A, B, and I. Okay, and then move it into arm mode. 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, very good, very good. That was very fast, and I think looks like we got all of them. So far we can do 5 all at once, pretty much instantaneously. Okay, so that's basically it. I could try some more igniters, but just like you, I'm on a tight budget, so I've only got a few more left, and I need to save for testing throughout the year. But at this point, we've shown that thing can light 5 cues pretty much instantaneously. I did have, I missed the button hitting number 6, so a couple of them might have gone off a little bit slow because I kind of was not putting my finger in the right spot. But in general, lighting off very quickly, and that, like I said, it was a 14-volt battery. The system is set up to where it can handle 24 volts. So if you put two 12-volt batteries and connected them up so that it was putting out 24 volts, all of the buttons and switches and even the LEDs are all set to be able to handle that kind of power. So this is a great system if you're looking to get into electronic firing, but you don't have enough for the wireless system. It gets you about, I mean, easily you could get about 70 feet away from what you're shooting with this wired system. They're really good slat cables. You don't have to know a ton about electronics, however you do have to have at least the willingness to start to read about things like diodes and resistors and LEDs and stuff like that. It doesn't take a ton of knowledge, but it does take a willingness to at least learn a little bit about them. Thanks guys, and look forward to seeing your comments.